Today, I'm very excited for a guest I have that I've gotten to know over the past several months, in person and virtually. She has a very, very unique business model, and I'm so excited to share her story, her journey, and get to know exactly what she's doing in the whole agricultural food sustainability. My guest, Nona Yahia from Vertical Harvest. She is a powerhouse. She is an architect by trade, and she is from my hometown, Detroit, Michigan, suburbs of Detroit, Michigan. And so, welcome to the show, Nona.
Thanks, Rose. And it's been such a pleasure getting to know you as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate just knowing, what you're doing. So kind of talk to our audience a little bit about, your background, because it's really fascinating. And then talk to us a little bit about how your background has led you to where you are now.
Sure. Well, so I didn't set out to be a vertical farmer. And I think that I became an architect actually by trade. And I was interested in architecture, I think, because that architecture really touches all things, right? It's about the fact that there's kind of design in everything, right? Everything that we look at is the way that it is for a certain reason. And I became really, really interested in architecture because I realized that if you look at it, it really can be an instrument and a tool for change, and it can be really impactful in people's lives. And I just thought that that was such a cool thing. So I always approached the profession through that lens. And became involved in community projects and really understanding, taking on all sorts of different projects, from rock climbing parks to redesigning garbage cans for city infrastructure and park benches, and really looking at how design could influence our lives. And in 2008, I don't know if you recall where we were globally. It kind of feels very similar to where we are right now, where things were changing in the markets. And, it wasn't a very good time for architects or really people at all. And so a lot of people had to reinvent themselves. And so I had moved to Jackson Hole, Wyoming from New York City, because my husband had graciously lived in the city for 10 years, where I thought that I would live the rest of my life. And he said, why don't we try something different? Why don't we, we had our young son, and he said, why don't we try something a little different? He had always been in love with mountains, and I followed him out here and started to build a pretty burgeoning practice. And what happened was I started to understand that there are similarities between the mountain town of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and New York City, that they really relied on community and relied on systems to thrive. So I built a little practice here and was getting a lot of work. And like I said, all of a sudden, boom, there was no work anymore. Another huge love of mine has been food, right? Understanding how food connects us. I'm Lebanese. Food has always been a binding element of my culture, of my family, of how I grew up. And so understanding that both in New York and here in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, we import over 90% of our food. So when there was no work, I started to really look at that and started to meet people who were also concerned with how do we create a local food economy and what does that mean to our communities? So I started thinking about how could we bolster the local food economy at scale, and met my co-founder. We started looking for ways to do that. We looked into greenhouses and really started to try to find a piece of property in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, that we could build a greenhouse. Now, if you've ever been to Jackson Hole, the public or private land is really hard to find because the presence of the national park, there's only 97% of land that's developable has already been developed. So there was a real kind of question, could we even find a place that would work? It was soon after that the town of Jackson said, hey, we have this really small piece of land, and we wanted to go to some kind of community project. It only measures 30 feet wide by 150 feet long, but maybe you both could put up a hoop house and extend the growing season here by a couple of months. If you've ever been to Wyoming, there's 8 months of winter. We're in the thick of it already in November. We just got 3 feet of snow over the last week. So they thought we could put a hoop house up. And as an architect, that just didn't satisfy my soul. I said we could definitely do better than extending the growing season by a couple of months. And that's where we had the idea to go up. So now on 1/10 of an acre, we grow 100,000 pounds of produce, or 10 acres worth of produce on that piece of property just by going vertical. And so I always like to say that necessity is the mother of invention, and that's what we did. We used, I needed to reinvent myself. We needed to be able to help our community in a better way. And so we innovated and really created the first vertical greenhouse in North America. It's a 3-story building.
I love that. I love that. And talk to us a little bit about your guys' model, because I think your model is really unique, because, there's businesses that are obviously popping up similar to yours, but I think that what you guys have created and the environment, the work environment you guys have created, let's talk a little bit about that and why that's so important for you guys as a company and you personally.
Sure. Well, so to start in what you're saying, controlled environment agriculture, what we call CEA, is the fastest growing industry in agriculture. And that's because we need to find ways that we can create more resiliency and sustainability in the way that we grow food. And that's why there's been a real focus on indoor growing, because we take the challenges of climate away from it, but it can be so much more than that, right? We can reconnect the farm to the urban center, right? There's been a real disconnect historically over the last 100 years as we've centralized our food system with, our relationship of food. Where does food come from? And this is really important, and the opportunity for, indoor farming. But as an architect and, positioning why I became an architect, I also saw the opportunity for this building to solve more than one problem, right? To solve more than the problem of how do we take away some of the challenges of growing food? How do we create consistency and availability year round? So we started to ask ourselves the question, what other problems could this farm solve? And so if we do reconnect the farm to the urban center, what does a new generation of farmers look like? So I grew up with a brother with disabilities, and my parents really tried to give us both the best of what they could to both of us. And, I think from a very young age, I was an advocate before I even understood what the word meant, because I saw that just wasn't possible. We did a really good job in this country creating educational opportunities for people with intellectual and physical disabilities. We've come a long way from when my brother and I were born in the 70s. But the fact remains still that when it comes time for employment, families and people fall off a cliff. There are slim to none good opportunities for going beyond just entry-level positions, for finding careers, for finding rewarding work, something that you and I and most people listening to this podcast, that's what we do. That's why we work. It's not only for the paycheck, it's because it's rewarding. It makes us who we are. So, we looked at in our town, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, it's not known for building careers. People come here to ski. They come here for the landscape. They come here to have a good time in their youth, but then they go back home to the coasts. At the same time, there's a burgeoning local business community. And in that local business community, there's an 80 8% unemployment rate for people with disabilities. So we said, people are looking for a consistent workforce, and at the same time, there's this real need for employment. So could we put the two together? And that's where my third co-founder, Caroline Croft Este, came in, and she was an employment facilitator for people with physical and intellectual disabilities. And she said, hey, if you guys ever get this farm off the ground, would you employ my people? And I was in before she finished the sentence. So from that point, Rose, the farm's mission not only became to grow food, but to grow futures. And that makes us very different from some of our competitors who are very focused on the environmental aspect of what these farms opportunities are. But I think the climate change isn't just about environmental issues. It's about public health issues. It's about social justice issues, and it's about economic resiliency issues. And we've created a company that can address all four of those within the private sector.
I love that. I love that. And, for us as a family office, and, us deploying our own capital into businesses, I truly believe, a lot of family offices look for opportunities such as this. Talk to us about the next project. I'm really excited about this next project. It's your second farm. So maybe talk to us a little bit about that and what the process is, where you guys are at with this.
Sure. So, Jackson Hole has been our laboratory about everything, right? So we have kind of four main categories. We've learned about product. We've learned how to grow the product in the last 6 years in operation. We've learned how to sell the product to a market here in a seasonal market that's very difficult and challenging. We've succeeded at that. We've learned in the last 6 years of operation about the systems and technology, and we've learned about our employment model, the Grow Well model, that really focuses on empowerment and ability. So we've done a lot in the last 6 years. And so we have about 15,000 square feet of growing area. As I said, that's about 10 acres of traditional farming production. And so what we wanted to do from the beginning is really see in this building that has become kind of our critical infrastructure for our community, that is valued in our community, like a public library or a community center. Could we scale this? And so all of what we've really focused on in terms of research and development has been looked at, how do we scale this? How do we make this even more impactful? So we have been working on for the last 2 years on developing a 2-scale prototype, which is midway through construction in Westbrook, Maine, which is outside of Portland, Maine, that now has 200,000 square feet of growing area. So this contributes over 2 million pounds of produce for the local community and creates 50 jobs. So it is really what all the work that we've done in the time here in Jackson has been. It is the culmination of all of that. And so that will be the prototype that we use to develop to 10 farms in the next 5 years across the country. So we're really focused on making sure that these farms are in an urban environment. We're focused on making sure that we don't only sell to retail, but we have an omnichannel sales approach that really makes sure that it's focused on our product being available, accessible, and affordable. So we work with retail, we work with food service, such as restaurants, we work with the school programs, we work with the hospital programs, we work with nursing homes, making sure that everybody can benefit from the real, the real benefit of what local produce provides us all in terms of nutrition density and taste profile. So this is something that is really critical to our success, and we will be up and running in October of this year.
Oh, I love that.
Year.
Love that.
Of next year. Sorry, Rose. I wish it was this year.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. So, I want to kind of shift here because, obviously our podcast is dedicated to female investors and female entrepreneurs. And so with that being said, I want to talk a little bit about the challenges that you faced when you were going out there to raise capital. Because when I heard about the struggle from Gingy, who obviously has been a huge advocate for you, it was just amazing. You were trying to go out there and raise a certain amount of money. I believe it was about $8 million, and found a very huge obstacle in regards to that. And some of your competitors are raising hundreds of millions of dollars. I want to talk about this problem and
Well,
why.
yeah, I mean, I think that is something that I'll always be learning about, right? Especially, not coming from tech or renewable energy, coming from the architecture space, understanding business in a way that is really tailored around the company that we're building. I think that, I know that entrepreneurship is always difficult, right? And you need to do things 100,000 times in order for something to stick. But I think that really telling the story of Vertical Harvest, being a woman, where I think that where it was a little difficult for us is people would buy in to the social component, right, of what we were doing very quickly. That was authentic. They knew that we would get it done. And being a woman, they said, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? She's very focused on the humanitarian aspect. She's very focused on making this work. But can she make it profitable, right? And there was that skepticism about that profitability for us, especially. And in the meantime, as you're saying, there's our competitors raising hundreds of millions of dollars based on tech, right? And on ag tech instead of just ag. And I think that there is right now a moment where there will be a shift where that's just not going to cut it, right? That the vision has to be backed up by profitability and has to be backed up by a path to profitability that's understandable and recognizable by investors. And I think that it's going to be a really critical opportunity for us at Vertical Harvest and for me as a woman to be able to prove that not only are we able to create the vision that is something that will mean something to people, why controlled environment agriculture should mean something to people, that it doesn't only have to be about really cool tech, it can be about people and how technology empowers people. But it is because of this balance of people and technology that we will be profitable, right? And that we will be able to drive market share because of who we are. And I think that although it was a very, very difficult journey to get to investors that understood the vision and understood it was this balance that will make us profitable, in the end, I always say that I've learned to embrace my skeptics as much as my supporters, because it's through the skeptics that you really learn how to create a bulletproof argument, right? How to create a bulletproof business plan. And it's through that kind of hard knocks and developing that thick skin that you get to something that has longevity and sustainability. And I'm grateful for that journey. And now, with the help of people like you and the community that you're creating, we're going to have an opportunity to really show that strength.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that you're absolutely right. Oftentimes we learn more from our failures than our successes, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, what you're doing is incredible. The work you're doing, the communities that you have built and will continue to build is just amazing. And so talk to us a little bit about the towns that you guys are going to be also launching in. I know you plan on, going to Detroit. I'm not sure if you're allowed to talk about some of the towns that you guys are looking to develop these farms in, number one, and what kind of support you're looking for as you build out this next phase of vertical farming?
Well, what's been really interesting is that we've been the little farm that could since we opened our doors in Jackson in 2016. And yes, it did take 8 years to get the farm up and running at that point. Because it was so new. But since we've opened our doors, we've gotten national attention, global attention, because of this mix of environmental and social focus that we have within the farm and the impact that we have on communities. So that's been really exciting to see. And so, cities around the nation and the globe have reached out and have wanted to replicate what we've done in Jackson. And so we've been really lucky that our message has resonated. And where we're really focused is on what we call secondary cities, right? We want to where people are moving, not that, Detroit is a secondary city, but where there's opportunity for growth, right? And where we can be near big population centers. So really the way that I see this is success looks like for me is that these farms will be a part of the infrastructure of every urban community. You'd see it if you, like I said before, you expect for there to be a library there, you expect for there to be a center for the arts, you expect there to be a farm, right, of vertical harvest. And we have been lucky enough to create public-private partnerships with communities already to really fill out our dance card for the next 10 farms. So we, as you said, are starting in Detroit. We have partners in Chicago. We are working with Las Vegas, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Tennessee, and others. So we're really right now developing where, what is the schedule for each of these farms. Really excited, as you said, to bring Detroit back to our hometown. This is kind of, I think, a poster child for where vertical harvest can really have maximum impact, where we are serving the local community in terms of jobs and really identifying where, food is a scarcity. There is a nutrition gap in the food that is grown in the area. And so that we can really fill those needs in a really robust way. So we're going to where we're needed, Rose. And I think that really these needs are kind of a win-win for municipalities. People really can't argue with either food or jobs.
Yeah, that's a fact, and one of the things I'm really passionate about in regards to your company is that, not only do you guys, employ people, with, different kinds of abilities there, you guys also have a really unique way of obviously, getting the food to the market faster and allowing it to be, fresher, allowing to cut down on food cost. I think that that's going to be a major issue going into the next, next few years in terms of the cost, right? And so I think that that's an issue that has to be addressed. And you guys are doing a fabulous job at doing that. And so, I want to talk a little bit about, where some of our listeners, if they're interested in getting involved and participating and, looking to help support this, talk to us a little bit about what you need as a company.
Well, we will, from a project to project level, we will need investment in each one so about 20% of the capital stack. These are big buildings. They are really infrastructure, so they have a big price tag. So we're looking at debt and equity in terms of fulfilling the capital stack. We do have a really exciting way of developing the capital stack for these buildings because it is infrastructure, because it is something that is so critical for communities. We are able to use financial tools that are built for this kind of thing. So that's why we only need a portion of the capital stack through, private equity and debt. So that's what we're looking at. And then as we grow the business, we're looking for people who want to invest in the corporate entity as we move forward. As you said, we just raised a small Series A. We're really excited about the investors that we've brought on board. And so we're looking to grow that team as we create our national expansion plan, where we can really facilitate rapid expansion, because this is a model whose time is now, right? We have a tipping point now where we really need to invest in urban infrastructure that, in redesign, that is able to redesign the fabric of our cities and focus on people on the margins, right? We've all been through the last 2 years where we've seen that, this is something that is critical. We need to focus on the health of our communities. We need to focus on what makes our communities sustainable ones. We know that successful communities are sustainable ones. So what does that really mean? And how can we create models to make sure that everybody's involved in that sustainability?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, 100%. So how can our audience get a hold of you if they have any questions or like to get involved?
Well, so we have a website, of course, Vertical Harvest Farms, so you can learn all about us there. We're on all the different social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We do great TikTok videos. So you can learn all about us. You can sign up for our mailing list, which, is on the website, and you learn about what we're doing on a weekly and monthly basis. And our team will be back to you with your inquiries and how to get involved as soon as we hear from you. So I think that, we'll be talking about our path forward. And so you'll learn all about it through all those different channels.
I love that. I love that. Well, I just wanted to tell our listeners, definitely reach out to Nona. I think that what they are doing is going to create $1 billion industry. I'm saying it now. I definitely believe that it's a game changer, and I think that we all want to be a part of, future opportunities and future growth. And I believe this is it. And so again, thank you so much for coming on to the show. It's really been insightful to listen to what you guys are doing, your journey, and everything that's related to vertical farming.
Well, thank you, Rose. And it is a pleasure to be here and to speak to your listeners. And I look forward to continuing the conversation as we grow together.
Cheers.
Cheers to you.
Bye-bye.